It is our first Madden Benz Unfiltered in the 2024 NFL season. Steelers win their opener on the road against the Atlanta Falcons. Are brought to you by Bella Construction. With 27 years of experience, they specialize in roofing, siding, windows, and doors. Their large purchasing power means unbeatable prices and top quality. For a free estimate, call 724-515-5163 or visit mybellaRoof.com. Bella Construction, where quality and affordability meet. Mark, the Steelers win on the road in Atlanta 18-10. It wasn't pretty. I don't want to say that that's how they want to win games, but it's how they're willing to win games.
Oh, no. That's how they want to win games. Because they know that's how they're capable of winning games. It's their best bets. They want to play bad, low-scoring, conservative football games that bore the viewer to tears. I mean, my God, after watching that Thursday night game and then having to watch the Steelers and Falcons, it was like football from a different planet, a dumber planet, a more boring planet. But they won. And I guess that means something, except it won't win enough. That method won't beat good teams. It won't win enough. It certainly won't win a playoff game.
What do you think the final score would have been like? How do you think the offense would have looked with a healthy Russ instead of Fields?
I don't know. Russ's big strength is that he's good in the red zone, right? The offense didn't get in the red zone until late in the fourth quarter. So I don't know. I think it probably would have done a bit better. And I'm not criticizing Fields. I thought he did okay, but only okay. He's not the hot hand. He shouldn't get the job.
I also wonder,
on winning a game where the offense failed to score a touchdown.
Yeah, I also wonder, Mark, if they kind of held back some of the playbook because Fields was the starter A and Fields was the starter.
No, I don't buy that for a second.
Well, if that's what the playbook looks like, then with Russell Wilson, they might as well keep Fields in there.
You see, Tim, the playbook stuff, I mean, this offense looked almost no different from last year's. They didn't throw a single ball, not one single pass in the middle of the field. Okay, and you can change coordinators, you can change playbooks, but the conservative approach comes from the head coach, and that's not ever going to change. And what a BS artist he was immediately after the game, talking about going for it on 4th and 1. We're going to live that life. We're not going to live in our fears. Meanwhile, all he did the entire rest of the game was lay up for field goals, which is living a totally different life, Tim, including on the very first possession of the season, 3rd and 6, and they run off tackle to give Boswell a 57-yard field goal, which with Boswell, boy, is he good. That is laying up.
Well, it was kind of funny that play. I was laughing watching it because Greg Olsen, who was the color commentator on Fox, after they handed the ball to Patterson, was sort of launching into this. Well, this is 2 to get 1. You know, they're using this 3rd down to set up the 4th down to make it easier because they've decided to go. And here comes Boswell. His whole analysis was just shot down right away because he was expecting.
But it goes to show you, and I think Greg Olsen's a really good analyst, by the way. But it goes to show you that people don't really understand Tomlin or the Steelers, not even on a local level. I mean, yesterday was such chicken scratch, cowardly football. It just is vomitous. But they won. Go Steelers.
Only team in the division to win. The other teams in the division look lousy.
And they were the only team in the division to not score a touchdown.
Well, I shouldn't say lousy necessarily for Baltimore because Baltimore was playing Kansas City, and they were a toenail away from forcing overtime in that one. So we need to use that as a measuring stick. Cincinnati losing to New England, though. I mean, my God, how did that happen? And Watson, Mark, he just looks cooked.
Yeah, I know Joe Flacco's not there anymore. Maybe they will wish he was before too long.
For sure they will. I mean, if that's the best they can get out of Flacco, granted they're playing the Cowboys, who I think might win the East and win the NFC and end up.
Well, the problem there, Tim, for the Browns is they're paying Watson so much that's guaranteed. I mean, they could walk away. And at some point they're going to, but it's so hard to do that, to not only admit that mistake, but to have financial culpability for it for so long and so much moving forward.
Quite frankly, this is exactly what the Steelers have to do, though, is to navigate this first half of their season and be above 500 if they have any shot for the playoffs, because things get very difficult in the second half. And they can kind of, I think, buy some time here with the quarterback situation, given who they're going to play. They got Denver next, then they got the Chargers. They have the Cowboys in there, too. So the three of the first four games, I think, are winnable. But when they go to Denver, I think they really risk the component of losing Wilson emotionally if they don't start him against the Broncos.
If he's available, you have to start him. You will break him if you don't start him. And again, I can't stress enough, Fields didn't play well enough to steal the job. He was okay, but no better.
Yeah, if you look at the numbers look good, like 17 of 23. So he was accurate.
What's $150 something? That's garbage.
He was accurate until he wasn't. You know, like the passes that were misses were pretty blatant.
The offense was terrible. Any parsing to try to find good parts of it is stupid. The offense was terrible.
What you think of the defense?
Pretty good. Watt had impact beyond his stats. I thought Porter did a number on that London kid, only got 2 catches. He was of no consequence. You got picks from Dante Jackson and Elliott. So, yeah, it's always hard to tell how the defensive line did, watching just on network TV.
You mean player to player?
That's a weak spot. But, the Atlanta running game never really got going. Bijan Robinson had a few good runs, but he wasn't dominant by any means.
No, it was 3.8 yards per carry for Robinson. I'll take that any day for a team that likes to lean on the run like they do, and at least they did before with Arthur Smith, and I still think they want to. But, I'll go back to a theme that I said from day one of training camp, which is I thought that the new secondary guys were woven in nicely and were good fits, like Jackson, Elliott, and your guy Beanie all made positive impacts.
Big stop. Beanie made that big stop.
That's right. And nobody really got loose of the skill guys for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Falcons kind of have the same.
They don't have a lot to get loose, though.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Steelers in the sense they got one receiver, a pass-catching tight end, a running back, and then nothing much after that. By the way,
Tim, I want to backtrack the offense for 1 second while I'm thinking about it. How about Jaylen Warren only got 2 carries? He looks like he's on the pay no mind list. But I get that because Oppenheimer is a power run guy, and Jaylen Warren ain't. I thought Najee, his stats weren't outstanding, but he ran real hard.
Yeah, I think he always runs hard. It's just how well does he run? And the Warren thing, I don't know how much of that is tied to his hamstring still, and they wanted to get
maybe
touches early, and it was back home for Atlanta for him too. I bet you we see that dissipate, maybe even next week, where I think they're going to really have to spread out the carries and the altitude in Denver.
Yeah, that's an interesting game. Like you said, the quarterback component with, I think you should start Russ. It wouldn't shock me if they lied about him being hurt. Because Tomlin's exactly the kind of old school coach that is going to say, well, we won. Fields won. Can't change the formula.
Oh, yeah. And
Tomlin's a nitwit. That stuff he said after the game, I was literally seething when I heard that we lived the life. Shut the frig up.
Well, he knows how it works, Mark. He can say that, and everybody's going to pull those sound clips and say that's Tomlin being Tomlin, good old-fashioned football stuff, and
not up in here. Not up in here.
Wrap their arms around it and continue the mythology of who he is as a coach and what they've done, which really isn't much. In fact, there's no playoff wins after 7 years, and I still don't think this will end in a playoff victory, even if they do manage to get their way through this first half of the season. Back to the offense for one other second, Mark, the wide receivers. We talked at great length about why they needed Ayuk, the fact that they didn't get Ayuk. I think that manifested right away. There were only 2 catches by guys not named George Pickens at the wide receiver position, one by Austin, one by Jefferson. They totaled 8 yards. And, man, again, that fourth down play where they decided to eschew the field goal, which would have given them the 8-point lead. They decided to go for it on 4th down. I didn't like the 4th down hurry-up snap that Fields tried to do the QB sneak, but I really hated the 3rd down play. I don't know how from the 7-yard line, you figure out a way to throw it short of the sticks on 3rd and 2. That's almost defying math.
It's what they do, Tim.
to Van Jefferson, and the play relied on Pickens and Austin blocking two guys successfully. Think about that. Everything is on the table, and the play calls for Van Jefferson to get 2 yards because Pickens and little Calvin Austin have to block it up the right way. That's just, what are you doing? If you're not,
Jim, if you're trying to talk me into hating the offense, I'm there.
I mean, I'm trying to talk everybody into realizing that it wasn't just about the fourth down call; it was the third down call too that should really make you mad.
Yeah, the offense was just a stink sandwich. I think it'll get a little better, not much better. I think their personnel will hinder Oppenheimer just incredibly. I mean, look at Freiermuth yesterday. The tight end's supposed to blossom in this offense. He had 4 catches for 27 yards. Tim, I would expect more for $48.4 million.
I was going to say, what'd you think about that contract?
Too much, too long for a guy who's easily replaced with a third-round pick.
I didn't feel like the too much quotient was there for the way they spread it out over 4. I mean, like, it's one of these deals where it's sort of like what they did with Deontay Johnson, Mark. It's almost like you're creating a hole that you have to fill when you're going to have so many other holes to fill in the first place. That's how I viewed the Freiermuth deal.
Yeah, but like, I'm not looking at context. I'm just looking at the guy, Pat Freiermuth. I think he's meh at best.
All right, so Steelers fans, we want to hear from you. We're seeing lots of comments get in. We will get to all of them at some point or another. League-wide, Mark, you sort of made the reference to the Thursday night game. The Friday night game, too, showed a lot more offense. We did see the...
I didn't watch it, Tim. That was my protest that high school football should be protected.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, I'm not...
There should never be pro football on Friday night.
I hope they don't do it on a regular basis.
There should be pro football on Saturday for college.
Yeah, well, they usually only do that late in the season when, they're in that silly season.
Oh, no. There's a congressional dictum.
Right, yeah.
As far as televised football, there are certain dates you can't do that with pro. And this past Friday was the last Friday of the year where you could televise NFL football.
Christmas apparently was not on that edict, a Wednesday Christmas for the Steelers.
Well, I mean, anybody who watches the game or plays in it will go to hell.
What about the backyard brawl, Mark? Are you at all interested in that or no?
No, I'm not.
I've tried to get myself interested like I did last year, and the fact that it's not the opener dulls it a little bit, even though I will say that Pitt is intriguing with the new quarterback and the new offense. I think I like what I've seen from Pitt so far. I think that can play in the ACC. Let me put it to you that way.
You can count me among the not intrigued, Tim. I'm just not intrigued with college football. The way they've de-regionalized it and ruined the rivalries and the conferences, I'm just not interested. And I understand that they're making more money. Good for them. I'm just not interested.
If they had
I ran into Coach Tom Bradley last night at the All-Star Sports Bar and Grill. That's where I had my Steeler viewing party, right? Mm-hmm. He had a great idea. It'll never happen. He said Pitt, Penn State, West Virginia, and Temple should play each other in the first 3 weeks of every season and have that be an informal league.
Sort of make it like the basketball version of the Big Five, then, is what you're saying.
Exactly. I think that's a great idea. I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, because then I think West Virginia would go along with that.
Penn State would.
Yeah, because Penn State kind of thinks of itself like it doesn't need anybody but the Big Ten.
Especially now that they figure to make the playoff, the 12-team playoff, more often than not.
Mark, I don't know about you, but I can't go online anymore without getting some sort of ad from the Penguins about the bobblehead series that they're going to have for PPG Paints Arena during their home games. Have you gotten overrun with these yet?
No, maybe they know better with me. I want to see the bobblehead where Sid signs.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Where's the Sidney Crosby signing his contract bobblehead? That's Sid with a big smile and his head going up and down. Yes, I'll sign here.
Well, I don't know. Fenway's trying to sign like Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk and Trent for Liverpool too. And somebody said yesterday to me at the All-Star, well, who would you rather see them sign? Sid for the Penguins or Salah for Liverpool? And I said, boy, I wouldn't want to be on a lie detector for this one.
How much time does Mo Salah have left in the Premier League? How many more
he's
years?
headed into they're all 3 guys are in their last year.
Oh, but I mean, like, how old is Salah? How many years left does he have?
32.
32? And like, how long did the Premier League guys play?
Usually a guy like him, a striker at 32 would be in his downside. He's not.
Okay. So it's sort of
He's
like
not. But part of that is, I mean, not to get too deeply into footy talk, but they had the Copa America and the European Championships this past summer, right? Well, Mo is Egyptian, so he didn't play in any of that. So he had a real off season. And he came back prepared and rested, and he's ripping it up.
I think the other bobbleheads that they do have, there's a Kessel one, there's a Hornquist one, there's a Talbot one. They got a Mario one. I just wonder if he's going to be there for his own bobblehead all night.
Again, Tim, I'd hate to be on a lie detector to answer that as well.
All right. Let's get to some comments here. We'll go to Eric. How in the hell can Matu still be employed? I think that's the strength and conditioning coach, right? He gets the starting QB injured with pure idiocy, yet he remains on the payroll. What a joke this organization has become. Guy should have been fired the second Wilson got hurt. It was like his first act as the new coach, by the way.
It's worth noting that Tomlin knew what was happening.
What do you mean by that?
Well, Tomlin knows what the conditioning test is going to be. He knew everybody was going to push the sled. Do you think Matu snuck that in on him?
I also wonder if Tomlin didn't know that Russ would actually do it, because I think Tomlin knew what Ben would have said if Ben had been the quarterback.
I told you what Ben said to me. I asked him, I saw him at the Liverpool friendly at Acrisure, and I said, what would you have done when they asked you to push the blocking sled? He said, I would have politely declined.
You know my theory on that with Russ, right? Like, he did it because he wants to shed this image that he's his own guy, he's his own entity, he's his own corporation, and he wanted to be part of the team and would do anything that they asked, and that's why he ended up doing what he did.
That's for sure true.
You know, and I think that's why he got hurt in the manner that he did. Eric adds, chance to go up by 8, and they go for it on 4th down, completely blow it. But, yeah, keep telling me how Coach Fraud is the gold standard. And I'm sure you'll get a lot of that from the media this week. This will be another, hey, look how Coach Tomlin pulled it out of the fire kind of week. We had to go to his quarterback on short notice. And again, like,
he did more to blow that game than he did to win that game.
But what we just talked about actually is a good example of how the narrative is different here in Pittsburgh than it is nationally for how Tomlin is talked about. Like, nobody in the national media will ever make the link between a guy that he just hired on his staff was the strength and conditioning coach that asked a quarterback to hit a sled 4 times.
Well, no, here's what they should see that's more obvious that they won't. Him going for it on 4th and 1, given the score and situation, after having laid up to kick a 57-yard field goal on the game's first possession. Those two decisions are directly contradictory. And what he said to justify the 4th and 1 failure, again, directly contradictory.
Haphazard.
Everyone should be playing that soundbite and saying, well, wait a minute, practice what you preach, Mr. Living the Life, but nobody will.
Well, I mean, I've heard some people and seen some people locally talk about that contradiction. But again, those are people who are around this team every day, as opposed to ones that are just out there to promote the league. And Tomlin's a very promotable part of that.
He's a rotten coach.
Eric says, when the Steelers offense takes the field, there should be a disclaimer on the bottom of the screen that it may cause drowsiness.
That's a good line by Eric. Tim, I mean, for me, that game was impossible to watch. I'm at the All-Star yesterday, and, like, the buzz dissipated. Usually, all these Steeler fans in one place, people are yelling and screaming. They didn't for a long time. They did at the end, like when Jackson got that pick. But it was just an awful game. I mean, just awful. Just diabolically bad.
And when you have a place kicker that you can rely on, you know what? You tend to rely on him, and you tend to play him, and they play to him. And the Steelers did that yesterday. They can get away with that for, the first half of the year before it starts getting rainy and cold and crappy in the AFC North for 6 of the last 8 weeks. Like, they're going to Denver. They're playing inside twice more before week 6. They'll keep doing that a bunch in the first half of the season and probably beyond too. And they might even put Boswell in some bad spots as a result in the second half.
Tim, they're going to try to play this way the whole year. This is the way the Steelers play. They play scared football, chicken scratch football.
Steven says Steelers are Super Bowl. The defense was interesting. And maybe that game has a little bit more buzz and a little bit more crackle if they let those calls stand on the TJ Watt strip sacks. Do you think both of those should have been overturned by penalty? I think the Jackson penalty was actually a worthwhile penalty. It's just unfortunate timing. but I thought the offsides penalty was poor. And TJ
Watt.
I
thought he was off, but people disagree with me. I thought he was a hair off.
Oh, you did? See,
yeah.
I actually thought that was the refs.
Put it this way: if he was only a hair on, then it's an honest call.
Watt insists that the official apologized to him afterwards. So I don't know how much I believe about that.
I believe that.
You said that to who was it? Garofalo of the NFL Network afterwards. But at any rate,
did you see after the one play, Watt bounced the ball off the turf point first, and it bounced right back up in his hands?
Yeah, I wanted to see a closer replay of that, actually.
You know who would know how to do that, Tim? A gym teacher. Because they just stand around the gym all day inventing ways to kill time. A gym teacher would know how to do that, and he did.
What'd you think of the officiating overall? I thought it was poor.
I think officiating in the entire league is just awful because the officials can't keep up with the play.
Literally in one case. And it was when the Steelers were on offense, for crying out loud.
How about the one moment where nobody was sure what down it was? Where the Steelers were running first down and the Falcons were defending fourth down.
Yeah, no one knew what down it was. They hadn't changed the marker yet. The Steelers were going for it on what they thought was first down. The Falcons were acting like they just defended fourth down. And no explanation was given. You know, the guys in the booth were kind of just guessing their way through the sequence. I felt sorry for him, actually. That's a tough spot.
One thing that is not an unfair premise to wonder. Maybe the game's just too fast to officiate, period. Maybe it's just, got to the point where the guys are too big, too fast. The plays are so complicated, at least in the minds of those calling them, where the officials just can't stay with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot for
even good officials.
Because there's a lot for the officials to look at pre-snap to see if everything's legal. But from, counting up from 9, 10, 11 to making sure everybody's lined up on sides, especially what they're trying to do now at the tackles to make sure they're not cheating.
They shouldn't worry about that. They should concentrate on the calls they're missing instead. They should get ahead of that. You know what I mean, Tim? Just get ready for what happens when the play starts.
Some of that might be, they can always slow down the players and the snap of the football to allow the defense to substitute. Like maybe they can kind of lean on that more if there's a problem for the officials to catch up.
But that's one thing I don't like about football. Too many sub packages. I liked when it was 11 guys on each side of the ball and they mostly stayed in there except for injury. Like, could you imagine, like the Steelers steel curtain, like Greenwood, Holmes, Green, and Dwight White? Can you imagine one of them coming out in sub packages? But they would today.
Pretty much the only guy was Furness, right? That would get in there in that part of the rotation.
But he was just a sub. I mean, he went in
until the end. Then
I
think he started maybe like the last 2 years, the Super Bowl years or something like that. But yeah, for the most part, it was those four and those four alone.
Correct.
Did you watch Brady at all in his debut?
No, I heard he was bad, but I think people were predisposed for him to be bad.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't, unlike a lot of other broadcasters who people like, they just say, well, they're good even if they're not. Brady, I think, probably goes in the other direction when it comes to that sort of thing.
See, my thing with him is he's not allowed to sit in on meetings with coaches and stuff because he's a potential owner of the Raiders, correct?
Right.
See, if I were the network, I'd say, listen, you can't own the Raiders. You got to pick one or the other.
And Fox,
would want him to do everything he can to prepare to do the job that we're paying him $37.5 million to do. Because I don't think he adds that much. His name initially does, but in the long run, he's just another talking guy.
Well, Fox brings some of this on when it comes to Brady because if people feel like he's over-promoted, I mean, in the middle of the Steelers game.
Well, people feel like they screwed Greg Olsen.
That too. But, they ran that promo with him talking to his former self and his future self with his kid in the Niners uniform and all that crap. They just completely
I just don't care who the announcer is, Tim. I think the last color commentator who meant a damn was Howard Cosell.
Now Stephen A. Smith says he wants to be Howard Cosell and be on Monday Night Countdown. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Well, if that happened, that would mean I wouldn't watch ever.
Richard says the Steelers still think it's the 70s, depending on defense to keep games close and hoping the ultra-conservative ground and pound game plan scores just enough to win. That usually leads to slightly above 500 regular season records, which is apparently good enough as the new standard. Yes.
I said it all. I can't add to that. He's totally right.
Sean, did Kirk Cousins have a bad game or was the Steelers defense that good? Both things can be true. Both things can be true.
I think both things are true. I thought Kirk Cousins, I think the exhibition season means nothing, but he clearly had a lot of rust.
Calvin says, is it going to be another season of begging for 20 or more offensive points in every game?
Yes, absolutely.
Probably, especially if they're trying to make sure Fields isn't put in a situation that's leading towards potential interceptions and turnovers. They are so turnover cautious. Like, Mark, did you hear those numbers that are being thrown around about them and the turnover stat? Like they were in the last 2 years, they're 0-15-1 when they lose the turnover battle. You don't think they know that? And all they're trying to do is avoid it.
Yeah, but that's because they play so conservatively.
Oh, I get it. One hand washes the other, and then it leads to it.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right. They're taking very seriously a statistic that they single-handedly created by playing too conservative. If you don't try to score points, yeah, of course the turnover is going to hurt.
This is from Richard. Oh, I'll take that back. This is from Matt, who says Fields wasn't great, but he did decently. The Steelers should stick with it. If we had another proven receiver, the run game would look better, and also the line gets to gel more.
Let me see if I have this right. Fields wasn't great, but did decently, and because of that, you want to stick with him. You don't want better than wasn't great, but did decently, you stupid idiot.
Well, that's why I look at what happened yesterday and say, okay, it was 18 points with Justin Fields. It was 6 field goals with Justin Fields. Could it have been 4 field goals and 2 touchdowns with Russell Wilson? If that was your plan coming in, could Russ have turned 2 of those drives into touchdowns as opposed to just field goals?
Well, you certainly want to think that, Tim, because he was QB1, all camp, even when he didn't participate.
Right, yes.
So, yeah, I think you owe it to yourself to find out.
All right, this is Brian who says, Smith is obviously a step up from Canada, but man, did the offense look really similar to last year. Nothing over the middle and absolutely conservative play calling. Well, that's why I would say that it's not obvious, actually.
And, Tim, by the way, when I say nothing over the middle, did you see the heat map for passes?
I did, and I heard you reference it on the podcast.
Literally nothing over the middle. Not one damn pass over the middle, period.
Brian also added first snap of the season, fumbled snap. I'm pretty sure Mark said he would fumble on the first. Did you say that? He was going to fumble on the first?
No, I said he would fumble. I put the over-under on snaps before he fumbled at 5. Maybe.
No, wait a minute. Hold on. When you do an over-under of 5, do you have to go 5.5 maybe, or do you go 4.5 maybe to get to 5?
I don't take it that serious, Tim.
How'd Mr. Friday Afternoon do in his debut? He's back, right? He fits into the new format of the show?
I got to be honest. That's in one ear and out the other. I'll have Tom, my producer, tell me. I don't know.
What do we think of the new format one weekend? Are you happy with it?
It's easier, and that was the only goal. Yep.
And then Cam Hayward screwed you and signed at 5:15 on the first day.
Which I ignored.
I'm sure Cam Hayward did that completely on purpose.
Catch up tomorrow, guys. We'll figure it out.
All right, Mark, what do you think for Denver? You got a prediction for Denver, or you wait until Friday for that one? We got to wait to see who the QB is?
I'll wait till Friday, but I think they probably beat Denver, but I think it's another just horrible game.
I want to see Presley Harvin come back to replace the new punter and kick about 3 punts that go 70 yards in the thin
How about that poor dope? And the poor Steelers, they finally get a good punter. Now he's like out forever. Although I will say, Tim, and I'm in the minority here, I thought that was the right call.
No, I think it was. He was being held.
I think Killebrew knocked him into him.
I know this, that if a Steeler player had run into the opposing punter and he was held in that manner, we would have been going crazy if it was a running into the kicker and extended a drive.
That's right. So, I wish the call would have gone the other way, but that's kind of foolish by Killebrew.
Yeah. I mean, I think for all the things that he does well, sometimes in that situation, he's not the biggest guy to be a personal protector, I guess is what I'm getting at. So,
you know what he does, Tim? He overdoes it on special teams sometimes, being the special teams captain at all.
Oh, hey, by the way, too much. Did you like my new purchase here? My Pittsburgh Pipers authentic sew it on.
Is that the real logo, or is that a latter day version of the logo?
I think this is the real logo, wasn't it? The Condors had the actual.
It looks too nouveau to be the real logo.
This was like what, but they made it so old. It's one of those iron-on plastic things that you can't put in the dryer or else it'll melt.
You should look that up, Tim. I mean, it's a great shirt, but they had bad logos back then. I mean, really bad logos. You ever see the Condors logo? That's the one I want.
I have a shirt with the Condors logo. Yeah,
it's like a drunk bird.
Yeah, yes,
a big drunk bird.
All right, that'll do it for us. We'll be back next week for Madden Benz Unfiltered. Mark is on at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock today, 2 until 6, with Tommy Radio, his producer for the first hour.
Yeah, we haven't settled on that.
Oh, we haven't?
No.
I was hoping you would trademark that, actually.
No.
I wanted you to trademark it so I could keep using it when I'm on with him on Wednesdays. So
there's a chance that might be done to be making fun of similarly nicknamed people on the radio. A chance.
It's a chance, right? All right, we'll be back next week for Madden Benz Unfiltered, brought to you by Bella Construction. Go to
You're just waving at me right now, Tim.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Some of the Bella Construction guys.
Oh, are they?
They just wave through the kitchen. My kitchen windows open to get the light in.
That's because Bella Construction reaped the benefits of the Great Siding War, right?
The Great Aluminum Siding War of 2024, correct.
Well, go to mybelaroof.com and you can get
more power to them, Tim. They did a great job. I just didn't think we needed it.
That's available for you customers. mybelaroof.com. We'll be back next Monday. What was that quote we got in there?